This story is about a man who fought with death not for 1 or 2 days, but for 439 days in the largest ocean on Earth, the Pacific Ocean, and survived. After almost 14 months, he came back alive, but was sent to jail as soon as he returned. Let's find out why in this video. Watch the video without skipping, because it's going to be very interesting. Let's get started. Hearing the name Pacific Ocean itself makes people sweat. The Pacific Ocean is much larger than we imagine. There are about 5 oceans on this Earth, and among these 5, the Pacific Ocean is the largest. The Pacific Ocean alone covers approximately 165 million square kilometers. Do you know what's surprising? The total land area of all the countries in the world is only about 148 million square kilometers. This means that even if we set aside the other 4 oceans, the Pacific Ocean alone is much larger than all the land on Earth combined. This shows how massive the Pacific Ocean is. There are many islands in the Pacific Ocean, but if you look at the map, these islands appear as tiny dots. Many of these islands have never been visited by humans. This means if someone gets lost in the Pacific Ocean, finding them is almost impossible. Today we are going to see the real story of a person who spent not 10 or 20, but a total of 439 days in the Pacific Ocean. Without knowing it, he set a world record that no one would ever want to break in their wildest dreams. He entered the Guinness World Records as the person who spent the longest time alone at sea. His name is José Salvador Alvarenga. He spent 439 days in the vast Pacific Ocean in his 7-foot boat. The big question here is how he survived for nearly 14 months in that desolate ocean. Before we find out the answer, let's see why he entered the Pacific Ocean in the first place. In 2012, José Salvador, a 36-year-old experienced fisherman, lived in a small coastal village in Mexico. On November 17, 2012, José and his friends set out to catch fish in their small boat. They planned to return within 30 hours, so they didn't carry much equipment. Their 7-foot boat only had an engine and a small refrigerator to store the fish they caught. José brought food that would last only 1 day, unaware that the next 439 days would become the most terrifying days of his life. They traveled 120 kilometers from the Mexican coast and began fishing, but soon a violent storm surrounded their boat. To save their lives, they abandoned their nets and tried to navigate their boat back to the Mexican coast. After about 6 hours of intense travel, they were only 20 kilometers from the shore, and they could even see their village. They thought they had escaped the storm, but luck didn't favor them. Just 20 kilometers from the shore, their engine broke down, and they had no paddles to row the boat. They only had a radio, with which they shared their location with their boss and waited for a response. But something happened that no fisherman would ever dream of. While they were waiting for their boss's reply, the radio's battery died, cutting off all contact with the world. As they were still in shock, strong winds began pushing them back into the ocean. The shore that was once visible slowly disappeared from view. Their boss organized a search team, but it was already too late. As days passed, survival became increasingly difficult for José and his friend. After about 5 days, the winds had pushed them 400 kilometers away. They realized that, due to their boat's small size, searchers might not even spot them. They had no flare guns or smoke signals to attract other ships. They ran out of the food they had brought and began catching birds that landed on their boat. On days when birds didn't come, they caught and ate raw fish. Since drinking seawater would kill them, they collected rainwater and found water bottles. On dry days without rain, they drank turtle and fish blood to quench their thirst. Months passed, and their mental torment became unbearable. After 4 months, José's friend, unable to bear the torture, committed suicide by jumping into the ocean. Now José was completely alone, with no one to talk to. He often thought it would be better to die, but he decided to fight and continued his lonely survival in the desolate ocean. About 6 months after leaving Mexico, he became very frustrated after losing his friend. One day he spotted a cargo ship in the distance and regained hope of survival. He waved and shouted at the cargo ship, but his small boat was not visible to them, leaving him devastated. Imagine battling death for months only to have a chance of rescue slip away in front of your eyes. 11 months passed, and José had drifted 8,000 kilometers from the shore. His clothes were tattered, and he only had his undergarments left to protect himself from the sun. But then, fortune smiled upon him. On January 30th, 2014, after fighting for survival for nearly 14 months, he saw coconuts floating around him. He immediately realized there must be an island nearby. As he suspected, he spotted an island in the distance. Fearing he might miss it, he jumped into the ocean and began swimming toward it. Finally, he set foot on the island after 14 months at sea. He discovered a house and met its owner. It was the first time in 439 days that Jose had seen another human being. The island was a remote part of the Marshall Islands called Eben Atoll, located 11,000 kilometers from where Jose started. If he had missed this island, the next nearest land was another 5,000 kilometers away. Jose was fortunate to survive and was sent back to his home country. However, an unexpected twist awaited him. After returning, he published his story in a book titled 438 Days. But his friend's family filed a case against him, accusing him of killing and eating their son. Jose had to go to jail just days after returning from the ocean. After several years of court battles, he was finally declared innocent.